Peruvian human rights organizations and legal experts denounced the latest move proposed by Dina Boluarte's government to throw sentences against protesters. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that military bloc is seeing some signs that China will support Russia in a conflict with Ukraine. Palestinian institutions and service providers went on strike in the occupied West Bank following the Israeli army massacre in Nablus, where 11 Palestinians were killed. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Peruvian human rights organizations and legal experts denounced the latest move proposed by Dina Boluarte's government to throw sentences against protesters. The executive presented a project to modify the penal code, which proposed increasing sentences for crimes committed during the state of emergency and social unrest. For example, it plans to extend sentences for minor injuries from 8 to 14 years, while they currently range for 2 to 5 years. These and other adjustments has been qualified by civil organizations as overstep, as well as being another form of repression. However, Peruvian citizens ratified it will remain in the streets until Dina Boluarte leaves the office. Speaking on the proposed modifications to the penal code, Peruvian Minister of Justice José Estelo stated that the decision cannot be described as authoritarian because it is a position supported by the Council of State.
I would eliminate the term authoritarian, and let's start with the fact that it's not of a state. So we have to separate the things. The context of protest that we have today is fine. We have to be respectful when protesting, but we also have to be cautious. That protest cannot escalate and end in acts of violence. I think we all understand that, because it is one thing to go out and protest on the streets, and another thing to go and take over airports.
Lula's government has announced that it will deliver $1.36 million in the next 180 days to rebuild Sao Sebastián, the coastal region of Sao Paulo state, where people were enjoying the carnival weekend. The equivalent of 2 months of rainfall fell in less than 2 days, a record in the history of Brazil. So far, 48 people are reported dead. Dozens are missing, and more than 2,000 have had to leave their homes. The municipality had not received money for the prevention since 2013. In Sao Sebastián, there had been at least 37 complaints over the last 3 years regarding non-regularization of rich areas, without the mayor's office taking actions. The state public prosecutor's office has warned that in 2017 about the riches of occupied and environmental risk areas. Other municipalities affected by this term had also not received resources from Sao Paulo state government from disaster prevention since 2010. Lula da Silva has urged to rebuild the affected houses in safe areas. In Argentina, the impeachment committed to the Chamber of Deputies collected on Thursday the testimonies against the members of the Supreme Court. The Commission began a period of investigations and collection of evidence and testimonies of the judges and officials in order to determine whether to issue a document accusing the members of the highest court of performance and irregularities. In early January, President Alberto Fernández, together with 11 governors, requested a procedure with a 410-page document in which they detail the violations of the Supreme Court in their functions. The text assured the existence of an inadmissible institutional degradation that jeopardizes the Republican systems of the division of powers. In Cuba, for 120 years, the United States has legally maintained a naval base in the provinces of Guantanamo Bay. The enclave was the result of the signing of the bilateral Laissez Treaty on February 23rd, 2003. The ambitious agreement took into account the strategic and geopolitical position of Guantanamo Bay, with the consequent dominance of maritime traffic in the Southern Caribbean. For its implementation, Washington used Article 7 of the Plan Amendment, an appendix included in the 19,001 Cuba's Magna Carta that allowed the leases of naval bases and coal bunkers. In the first half of the 20th century, the territory allowed training and preparation of the U.S. fleet against several countries in the region. In 2002, President George W. Bush opened a prison there, which also became a children's center. Nowadays, more than 150 U.S. organizations are calling for facilities to be shut down after the widespread evidence of the multiple and terrible abuses against prisoners committed there. Cuba is recently facing the again and decline of its population, demographic challenges that affected different nations across the world. Let's learn more about the situation in the largest of the Antilles.
Cuba's population is shrinking and aging, a demographic situation that experts consider dramatic for the economy and development of a country in crisis, subject to sanctions from its neighboring United States. In the 1990s, Cuba reached 11 million inhabitants, a figure that has remained stable until now. Even as the official count continues to report a similar number, the current population on the island could be even less after last year's migratory spike. This rapid decreasing and aging of the locals is worrying authorities.
It is a country with a decreasing population. Our population has been decreasing for several years. We are naturally decreasing. That's a complex situation in a country. We are not the only ones in the world, but we are following fundamentally developed countries in this evolution.
There are 2.4 million people over 60 years of age in Cuba, which represents slightly more than 20% of the island's total population, and it is expected that by 2030 this age group will exceed 30%. According to experts, in the coming years there will be less labor force and greater pressure on the pension and elderly care system.
The only population group that is growing in Cuba is 60 years and over, and within that age group, the population of 80 years and over is growing a lot.
The low birth rate in Cuba is not new. The high educational level of Cuban women and the easy access to contraceptives and legal abortion in the country results in a fertility rate of 1.52 children per mother. Another factor in the low birth rate is the worsening economic and housing situation. Yenima Piñero lives with her husband, baby, mother-in-law, and uncle in a small house.
We are thinking of having another one, at least another one, a third one, I don't know. It would already be a very big effort.
The demographic transition that is happening in Cuba is unique in the Caribbean, but similar to what is happening to modern societies like France, Spain, or Germany. A similar situation occurs in Uruguay and Costa Rica in Latin America, where fewer people are born than those who die each year.
We have experienced a population decline. For example, 5 years ago, we had around 900 to 1,000 births. However, over the years, due to the pandemic and many other issues, last year it decreased to around 700 to 800 births.
To counteract this situation, the government has updated a policy of support for fertility programs and assistance to mothers with more than 3 children, which includes incentives such as the provision of housing. However, this has not yet been implemented.
Let's take a very short break now, but remember you're gonna follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. A winter storm in the U.S. that led to the death of at least one person and knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of customers in the upper Midwest was continuing its assault on the region on Thursday. Nearly 900,000 customers were without power across Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Minnesota. Meanwhile, more than 700,000 of those outages were in Michigan, where significant ice had accumulated on 3 power lines. According to a statement from the Van Buren County Chief Office, the storm killed a volunteer firefighter from the Paw Fire Department in Michigan. The U.S. Geological Survey confirmed that magnitude 6.8 earthquake struck on Thursday morning in eastern Tajikistan, 67 kilometers west of Morkan, and with a depth of 20.5 kilometers. So far, no casualties were immediately reported. According to the agency, several aftershocks followed the initial quake of magnitude 5.0, 4.6, 4.9, and 4.8 respectively, adding that the epicenter appeared to be located in Upper Badakhshan, a province bordering Afghanistan and China. Witnesses said that the quake was perceptibly in Kazakhstan, some 657 kilometers northeastern of the epicenter, and that the shaking lasted at least 10 seconds. A magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck the country in 2015, being the least earthquake within 300 kilometers of Morgan, as it killed 399 people. Kazakh national company Castrosoil began to receive Kazakh oil from shipment to Germany. It is since that the press services of the pipeline operator said that according to the oil supply plan approved by the Ministry of Energy, the company will send 20,000 oil tons for the Adamovas Sestava oil distribution point for the water delivery to Germany via the Druzhol oil pipeline. It is expected that Kazakhstan could ship up to 300,000 tons of crude oil through this road in the first quarter of 2023, out of the 1.2 million tons per year that agree between concerned oil and Trump's Fed. A bus accident in the central Sweden led to some 30 people, including teenagers, ending up in hospital on Thursday. 3 buses were transporting high school students and teachers to a ski resort when the incident occurred on a main highway south of Sveg. According to the police officers, they were traveling towards the Roman Alpine ski resort around 200 kilometers northwest of Stockholm early in the day. The cause of the accident was not immediately known, but witnesses estimated showed the road was icy. The government of Finland on Thursday announced other defense support package for Ukraine that includes Leopard 2 battle tanks. The Finnish Ministry of Defense, Michael Savola, reported in a statement that the 13th package of defense material to Kiev is worth $169.5 million. Savola stated that Finland will send more defense aid and will participate in Leopard cooperation together with its Western partners, sending 3 Leopard 2 main battle tanks to Ukraine, including training related to their use and maintenance. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg said military bloc is seeing some signs that China will support Russia in the conflict with Ukraine by providing it with weapons and other assistance. The head of the Atlantic Alliance said he had received some signs that China might be planning such assistance. Stoltenberg stressed that possible Chinese aid to Moscow will amount to direct support considered a flagrant violation of international law. China's National Health Commission on Thursday reported that COVID-19 has ended in the nation while being accusations saying that it is not completely over as there are still sporadic cases. In this context, the head of the COVID-19 response expert panel that China's National Health Commission, Liang Weinan, said from a perspective of public health, the infection rate, including accumulated new cases, the immunity rate, the pathogen and the state of the medical system, and the overall disease control and prevention capability are important indicators that a season of the pandemic has passed. Speaking at a press conference, the head of the COVID-19 response expert panel, Liang Weinan, emphasized the countries manage the challenge of the latest round of the COVID-19 epidemic and achieve a decisive victory.
The COVID-19 pandemic remains to be a public health emergency of international concern. From a global perspective, the state of the pandemic still exists, and the harm of the disease still exists, but we can say that China has achieved a major and decisive victory in its COVID-19 prevention and control as a country with a large population, and we have set a good example. Speaking of decisive victory, it means that China has managed the challenge of the latest round of the COVID-19 epidemic and created a relative good immunity barrier. Judging from the characteristics of the epidemic itself, we can say that the COVID-19 has basically ended, but it's not completely over. There are still sporadic cases reported in parts of our country.
And we have more news coming up after a 5 short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. In Syria, authorities have begun reconstruction work at the Damascus historic citadel, declared an UNESCO World Heritage Site, which has been severely damaged by Israeli attacks. Last February the 19th, Israel repeatedly a new attack against the Syrian territory, and in addition to killing and wounding several people, archaeological sites and educational institutions were also targeted. One such site was a building dating back to the early 13th century BC in the Damascus historical citadel, a building of incalculable value. Palestinian institutions and services went on strike on Thursday on the occupied West Bank following the Israeli armed massacre in Nablus, where 11 Palestinians were killed. According to the local media, stores, banks, schools, and universities closed their doors as part of the call made by the Palestinian factions as a whole. Thursday's protests denounced the event of Wednesday's violence in Nablus, where more than 100 people were reported in and 11 were killed by Israeli troops. The United Nations had issued a categorical statement in which it describes all Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territory as illegal. The statement was made up by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres at the opening of the 2023 session of the Committee on the Executive of the Inalienable Right of the Palestinian People. Guterres said that such settlements are a clear violation of international law, therefore they must be stopped. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm from the South. I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.